Let's start with a scenario. You're a parent, or, maybe a teacher,
Hmm.
and you're watching this generation of teenagers who just seem more anxious, more depressed than ever before. You look at their phone and you think, that's the poison.
Right. The easy answer.
Exactly. And then the government hands you what feels like a magic bullet, a total ban, no social media for anyone under 16. It feels decisive, like a safety lock.
It does.
But the real question is that a solution? Or is it just a very expensive, very complicated pacifier for the adults?
That's the question of the moment. And if you look at the data we're seeing this week, that safety lock might actually be a trapdoor.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. I'm your host. Today we are tearing into a massive stack of reporting from The Economist, hitting stands tomorrow, February 14th, 2026.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Right. But the theme that's emerging, it really isn't about love, it's about unintended consequences. We're going to look at why this global wave of social media bans could backfire.
And we're not just staying online. We're going to Japan, where a historic election has just handed power to the country's first ever female prime minister.
A woman who is systematically dismantling Japan's post-war pacifism.
Yep. Then we'll explain a terrifying economic idea called Brazilification.
It sounds like a vacation.
It's really not. It's a warning for the U.S. and the U.K. about what happens when your debt interest starts to eat your economy alive.
And then a bit of good news, a success story out of Birmingham, Alabama, where they're fixing failing schools with a lottery system.
You heard that right.
And to finish, why the world is apparently running out of tenors. If your local choir sounds a little heavy on the bass, there's a reason.
A crisis for the high notes. It's real.
So our mission is to get past the headlines, find the mechanics underneath. Let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the social media ban. This thing is moving fast.
Incredibly fast.
Australia already pulled the trigger. Under 16s have been banned since last December. And now you've got the UK, Spain, US states all lining up to do the same. The political momentum is just huge.
It's a juggernaut.
Yeah.
I mean, in Britain, support for ban is polling at 70%. In the U.S., it's one of the only things Democrats and Republicans actually agree on.
And it's all being driven by this anxious generation theory from Jonathan Haidt.
Right, the idea that the smartphone has basically rewired kids' brains and created a mental health epidemic.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the distress is real.
The sources do cite a social media use disorder at about 7% in Europe and Canada. So parents are not imagining this.
No, not at all.
But The Economist is really skeptical of the ban as the fix. They call it the cliff edge problem. What is that?
Okay, think of it like this. You wouldn't keep your kid away from water for 16 years,
No.
and then on their 16th birthday, just throw them into the deep end of the ocean.
You'd hope not.
But that's exactly what a hard ban does. It completely denies teenagers that training wheels, period.
Where they're supposed to be learning digital literacy with a parent looking over their shoulder.
Exactly. How to spot a scam, how to handle a nasty comment, how to curate their own feed. If they can't get on at 13 or 14, they don't learn any of it.
So they turn 16, they're legally allowed on, and boom, they're just overwhelmed by algorithms they have no idea how to navigate.
Precisely. They have zero antibodies built up. And that's assuming the ban even works, which the reporting from Australia suggests it doesn't.
Right. I read about this age assurance tech. It sounds like something out of science fiction.
And not in a good way. It's a mess. To prove you're an adult, it does facial estimation. So now you've got Australian teenagers literally scrunching up their faces, squinting,
Trying to create wrinkles for the AI.
trying to look 30 to fool the AI.
Mhm.
It's the digital version of stuffing your shoes to look taller.
But there's a darker side to that.
There is. If the main platforms like Instagram and TikTok become impossible to get into, the kids don't just stop, they migrate.
They go to other places.
Darker corners, encrypted messaging apps, forums, places that are much, much less moderated. And because they're there illegally, if they get into trouble grooming, bullying, they can't tell their parents.
Yeah.
You've just pushed the entire problem underground.
So if locking the door doesn't work, what's the actual fix? We can't just throw our hands up.
Well, the sources make this really critical distinction. It seems the total time spent online isn't the main problem. It's the nature of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Are you actively chatting with your friends? That seems to be mostly fine. Are you passively doom scrolling at 2 in the morning? That's toxic.
So the problem isn't the phone, it's the...
The addictive design.
Yeah.
The infinite scroll, the autoplay videos. And that's where the European Union is actually leading. They're suing TikTok, not over content, but over its architecture.
It's design.
Yes. The argument is, don't ban the user, break the addiction loop, force these companies to share their data, and redesign the interface to be less predatory.
A structural change, not a blanket ban. That feels like a theme. Let's pivot to another huge structural shift over in Japan.
And the timing is incredible. Japan just had a snap election, and the LDP, the Liberal Democratic Party, they didn't just win. It was a historic landslide,
Almost 70% of the lower house.
a massive mandate. And it's all led by Takechi Sane, Japan's first female prime minister.
Which is a huge deal on its own. Japan's record on gender equality in politics is not great.
Terrible. But Takechi isn't just breaking a glass ceiling. She's coming from outside the old boys network. She's not from some political dynasty. She's middle class. She's seen as plain speaking. And frankly, she's scaring the establishment.
The reporting calls her an iron lady, like Thatcher. In Japan, that must mean something very specific about the military.
It does. For decades, Japanese politics has been defined by its pacifist constitution. You just don't talk about offensive weapons. You absolutely do not talk about nuclear weapons.
And Takechi is shredding those taboos.
Completely. She's already pushing defense spending to 2% of GDP, way ahead of schedule.
Why the urgency? Is this just her ideology, or is there a real threat?
Oh, it's survival. I mean, look at the neighborhood. You've got an aggressive China, a nuclear North Korea, and Russia. Her argument is that pacifism is a luxury Japan can't afford anymore. She wants to unshackle the defense industry, even talk about hosting U.S. nukes.
That is a seismic shift. But then there's the other piece of this puzzle, the Trump factor. In this timeline, Donald Trump is back in the White House. How does she fit in?
Surprisingly well. He actually endorsed her. She's positioning herself as the Trump whisperer. She gets that he sees alliances as purely transactional.
So she's playing the game.
She is. She's boosting military spending, showing Japan is paying its fair share. But she's also hedging her bets. She's pushing to link that big Pacific trade deal, the CPTPP, with the European Union.
Building a bloc that doesn't necessarily need the U.S.
It's a with him but also around him strategy. Very smart.
But the Economist flags a big risk here with her nationalism.
Yeah, the Yasukuni risk. She's an ardent nationalist.
Yeah.
If she visits the Yasukuni Shrine, which honors Japan's war dead, including convicted Class A war criminals,
China and South Korea would go ballistic.
it would cause an immediate diplomatic crisis. And right now, Japan needs South Korea as an ally. So if her ideology overrides her pragmatism, she could wreck her own foreign policy. It's a real tightrope.
High stakes. Okay, let's move from the risks of nationalism to the risks of national debt. We need to talk about Brazilification.
This is the concept that really stopped me in my tracks this week.
Yeah, when I hear Brazilification, I'm thinking of like carnival or football. But this is not that.
Not that at all. It's a very specific economic trap. So to get it, you have to look at Brazil's books. They actually run what's called a primary budget balance.
Meaning what they take in taxes equals what they spend on services day to day.
Right. If you ignore interest payments, they break even. They're responsible.
There's a but.
There's a huge but. Because of their history of inflation and instability, investors demand a massive risk premium to lend them money. Brazil pays interest rates of around 15%.
15%, that's credit card debt for a whole country.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So even though their day-to-day budget is balanced, they have to borrow a staggering 8% of their entire GDP.
Every year.
Every single year, just to pay the interest on their existing debt.
Wow. That's a black hole.
That is the Brazil trap. It's a debt interest spiral. And the warning here is that the rich world, the US, the UK, France, is sort of sleepwalking towards the same cliff.
Hold on, but we're not Brazil. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency. The UK is seen as stable. We don't pay rates like that.
Not yet. But look at the trends. We have aging populations, so pension and healthcare costs are exploding, and we have political instability. I mean, January 6th in the US, the constant churn of prime ministers in the UK. All of this makes investors nervous. The risk premium on Western debt is rising.
So the aha moment is thinking, what happens if the US suddenly has to pay, say, 5% or 6% on its national debt instead of 2%?
The math just breaks. If the US or UK has to find an extra, 5% of GDP just for debt payments, you have a brutal choice. It's either deep austerity slashing public services, or you borrow more money to pay the interest, which just drives your rates even higher.
And that's the spiral.
That's Brazilification. It's a warning that institutional credibility, which sounds like the most boring topic in the world, is actually the only thing keeping your economy stable.
That is sobering. Let's try and find something more optimistic. Let's go to Birmingham, Alabama.
A genuinely great turnaround story.
We hear about the southern surge with factories and jobs, but this is about education. States like Mississippi, Alabama, They're shooting up the rankings, even beating wealthy states like Massachusetts when you adjust for poverty.
And Birmingham is the perfect case study. I mean, post-pandemic, the city schools were in crisis. Chronic absenteeism was at 29%.
Nearly a third of kids just weren't showing up.
Not showing up. Schools were rated F. The usual response is punitive. You send truancy officers. You find the parents. They flipped that script completely. They created a program called Everyday Counts.
Oh, okay.
If your child has perfect attendance for a month, you, the parent, get put into a lottery. And the prize is the city pays your rent or your utility bills for that month.
That's brilliant. It's a direct, tangible incentive that helps the whole family.
And it gets at the root cause. Kids often miss school because the family is in financial chaos. This helps stabilize the home. And guess what? Absenteeism dropped from 29% down to 13%.
Wow. That's a huge drop. But getting them in the door is just step one. They also had to fix the summer slide.
Yep. We all know kids lose knowledge over the summer. But nobody wants to go to summer school. It feels like a punishment.
It has a stigma.
A huge stigma. So Birmingham just rebranded it. They call it intercession. It's these breaks during the year where kids can come in for extra help.
Is it just a name change?
It's a rebrand plus infrastructure. This is the key.
Yeah.
They kept the school buses running for intercession, and they served hot meals.
There's that structural design again. It's not just come learn, it's we will physically get you here and we will feed you.
Exactly. You remove the friction. The results were incredible. Third grade reading proficiency jumped from 53% to 81%.
81%.
From 53.
It's amazing. And the takeaway, I think, for everyone listening is that this challenges that sense of fatalism about poor urban districts. The issue wasn't the kids' ability to learn. It was the system's ability to serve.
Ability to serve. I like
Yeah.
that. Okay, before we wrap, a couple of quick hits.
Great.
First, on U.S. politics, there's this trap for Democrats when it comes to ICE.
Yeah, it's a classic rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
With Trump back in office and ramping up deportations, the Democrats are stuck. Their base wants to abolish ICE because of, the brutal tactics. But swing voters want border security.
So they're paralyzed.
Totally paralyzed.
Yeah.
The reporting says they have no unified message. They can't support the agency, but they can't get rid of it without looking weak on crime.
A political mess. You know it's also a mess? The tenor section at my local choir. The great tenor crisis of 2026.
I had no idea this was a real global thing. Choirs are literally running out of men who can hit the high notes.
It's true. The tenor is becoming an endangered species. And there's a wild scientific theory about why. We're just getting taller.
Wait, how does height affect your voice?
Well, generally, as nutrition improves, people get bigger. Taller frames tend to have longer vocal cords,
And longer cords vibrate slower.
creating a lower sound. We're literally evolving ourselves out of the opera. We're becoming a planet of baritones.
That's amazing.
There's also a cultural thing, a fear of sounding shrill, but the shortage is so bad that choirs are now hiring what they call stiffeners.
Stiffener. Please tell me that's the real term.
It's the industry term. It's a professional singer you pay to stand in the back and just belt out the high Bs so the amateurs don't sound so thin.
It just shows how valuable that sound is. The source described the tenor note as strange, slightly desperate, and essential.
It's the sound of heroism in music, and we're losing it.
Strange, slightly desperate, and essential.
Yeah.
I feel like that could describe most of the news this week.
It really could, yeah.
So let's tie this all together. What's the through line? We've gone from TikTok to Japanese defense to schools in Alabama.
I think the thread is the power of structural design versus the failure of just, blunt slogans.
Walk me through that.
Okay, the social media ban. Ban the kids is a slogan. It's a blunt instrument that probably fails. The real fix is designing the algorithms differently, a structural change.
And Birmingham.
They didn't just yell, go to school. They designed a lottery and a bus system that made it possible for kids to go.
And Brazilification is the ultimate failure of design.
It's what happens when your structure is broken. When you build an economy where debt interest eats everything, the whole thing just collapses. It seems like success comes from the smartest architecture, not the loudest demand.
A powerful way to look at it.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. We talked about Brazilification, that debt trap.
Right. And we tend to think about national debt as just these abstract numbers on a screen.
Well.
But I want you to think about it in terms of freedom.
Okay.
If rich nations don't fix their institutions, their pension systems right now,
Yeah.
are we designing a future where the next generation spends their entire working lives, all their taxes, just paying off the interest on our choices.
Are we essentially turning our own children into debt servants because we couldn't get the math right today?
It's a heavy question, but it's better to ask it now than when the bill comes due.
Indeed. Stay curious, stay skeptical of the easy fix, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.